everybody, welcome to my page. I'm Teresa Mealy from Total Health and Wellness. I am here today, excuse me, with Kyler Brown. He's a representative from Bloom CBD, and we are going to be talking again today about CBD.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me back.
You're welcome. I'm glad you can come and give us such good information. We did a CBD video. It's probably been about 6 months now.
Has it been that long?
It seems like it.
Oh my gosh, okay.
Yeah, so we're in our new office here now, and so we get constantly questions about CBD. So I think we'll repeat some stuff from the first video, but then just delve deep into some of the questions that I got.
Yes,
so,
absolutely. Let's dive right in.
Yeah, so Bloom is one of our favorite brands we carry here at the office. So just remember, you do not have to be a patient to obtain or buy CBD oil from us. You could just pop into our office anytime and get it. So let's talk about Bloom CBD oil. So Bloom is straight CBD.
Yes, we have a variety of different CBD products. We started out with our tincture that you've been carrying here, which is a CBD isolate base. The benefit of that would be there's no taste, and we can guarantee that any of our customers who take the product will not fail the drug test.
Right.
And then we have our full spectrum vape cartridges. We're very excited because we just released our 450 milligram full spectrum tincture to market, which has the benefits of the entourage effect, which would have all of the cannabinoids from the hemp plant rather than just CBD, as we've had in the CBD isolate tincture. And we have some new products that are going to be coming out here next month in September as well, if we're very excited.
I can't wait.
Yes.
I can't wait for some of the skin stuff.
The coffee,
Yes,
very excited.
infused coffee.
Any coffee drinkers out there, we will have a brand of CBD infused coffee, which I'm a coffee snob, so I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, well, I'm excited. My husband Mark's will put the Bloom drops in his coffee too, but now he won't have to. It'll just be infused coffee. So yay!
Yep.
Okay, well, let's hit on that more then. So what is the difference in CBD, pure CBD oil, or I should just say plain CBD and full spectrum?
So full spectrum is where you're going to extract every single compound from the hemp plant. You've got about 85 different cannabinoids, CBD being a cannabinoid, which is the class of active compounds extracted from the cannabis plant. You've got different flavonoids, you have waxes, you've got lipids, a whole different range of biologically active compounds found in the plant that our body is readily able to accept and use how it needs to. So that would be full spectrum, which studies have shown there's an effect called the entourage effect, which has been shown in different studies. If you have the full range of plant compounds, they seem to work a little bit more synergistically in the body to provide a more therapeutic effect. The problem with that is if you do have concerns of a urinary analysis or having a passive drug test, there's a very, very small chance that you can actually fail a drug test from taking full spectrum over a prolonged period of time. They're only testing for THC when it comes to urinary analysis, which the federally legal limit for any CBD product for the THC level is 0.3% or less. And the full spectrum does have a little bit of an earthy taste.
Yes.
You'll see a lot of products that are either just a natural flavor or it's sweetened with peppermint or spearmint. And so as opposed to just pure CBD, you're taking that full spectrum and you're isolating that down to just the one molecule of CBD, which still has great benefits in itself, of course. Studies have just shown you need a higher dose of just CBD without any of the other cannabinoids. One of the biggest benefits, of course, is we can guarantee that you're not going to fail a drug test since there's 0.0% THC within a pure CBD product, as well as there's no taste. So for people who are sensitive to that earthy taste, pure CBD would definitely be the way to go.
Right, and I have a few guy patients who work at FedEx and who are on the railroad, and so for them we just do the Bloom tincture straight CBD, not the full spectrum. Although it's our understanding you would have to take a lot per day to register, but we wouldn't want to take that chance because there's no drug test that shows it's THC from CBD oil or THC from smoking
Exactly,
marijuana.
There's no delineation as far as which type of product it's coming from.
Right.
So.
Right. Okay, well, let's get into some questions that we have accumulated from people.
Okay.
Is CBD addicting?
So a study that actually the World Health Organization came out with this year, it stated that CBD has no potential for abuse or addiction, and it's widely available to offer therapeutic benefits for a number of different ailments, and it's relatively safe for all ages to take. So that was actually the World Health Organization that came out, which is directly in conflict with the United States FDA, but that's just that's the battle that we have to put up with for the time being. So.
Right, and so Mark and I give our boys CBD oil for different things, and it can help with sleep. Our nurse Christina gives her son CBD oil to help with sleep and other things. So what is CBD good for? What are just some of, because we don't have time to sit and listen all of it.
Oh my gosh, we've been here all day.
Right.
CBD has been shown to help tremendously with over 50 different ailments that I can think of off the top of my head. Anything from mild issues such as anxiety, sleep-related issues, mild to severe pain. It's been shown to help with substance abuse, opioid addiction, nicotine addiction, alcoholism. The National Institute of Health, actually, we saw this come through just this week. The National Institute of Health is doing a double-blind placebo trial on alcoholism for CBD. And so we're definitely going to be paying attention to this study as it progresses, but they are actually going to be supplementing up to 450 milligrams of CBD a day to combat alcoholism.
Which is going to be fantastic outcomes, I just know it. Because you're feeding the receptors, and then plus you're feeding a reason that most people are numbing things with alcohol and drugs, which is usually anxiety, depression, some sort of trauma.
Yes.
And so CBD can help all of those things by itself, where you don't need alcohol.
CBD's ultimate goal is to, within our endocannabinoid system in our body, which is composed of cannabinoid receptors found in our brain, throughout our body, the immune system. We actually have what's called endocannabinoids, which are structurally almost identical to the cannabinoids found in the cannabis plant. And we have enzymes that actually break down and make up these endocannabinoids within our system. So the ultimate goal of CBD in our body is to excite or inhibit. So if something, if we're deficient in endocannabinoids within our body, CBD helps to supplement and create those endocannabinoids where we are deficient. Or if we have too much anxiety, if we're just too much stressed, it will help inhibit and do the necessary things that it needs to help balance.
Which I love that there's a system in our body that we were created with for cannabis. Like we weren't created for a receptor system in our body for antidepressants or anti-anxieties or opioids.
And I think that's a lot of the side effects that we're seeing nowadays of all this synthetic medication, which, don't get me wrong, medication has a place in society, but I think that we've just gone the wrong route when we have all of these tools within nature that our body is readily able to accept and use how it needs to help create homeostasis. I
do think a lot of the regular provider world, so Western medicine, is not up to date with all of this. And which does happen after they leave medical school or nurse practitioner school. It's been shown in studies that it takes 20 years for new information to trickle down to practice settings. And so a lot of times this is, other people are closed-minded or just don't know the research, but there's tons of research on cannabis through Project CBD is a good one.
Yep.
What's the other one?
Most of the international research for cannabis and the endocannabinoid system is coming out of Israel or Canada. And it's terrible because for such a profound system within our bodies to help restore balance, the endocannabinoid system is only taught by 15% of medical universities in the United States at this point. And a huge reason for that is because it's illegal in the first place within the United States to even research the plant or the system for which these compounds interact with. So
because it's a class.
It is a Schedule I substance, which means that it has no medicinal potential and a high risk for abuse. It is in the same class as heroin, methamphetamine, LSD, which anyone can take one look at.
Right.
People who have taken different, whether it be CBD or whether it be medical cannabis, which has killed 0 people throughout the dawn of human existence. So
I know, it kind of makes my skin crawl just a little. So let's talk about the fact that cannabis was used to treat most issues back in the late 1800s and early 1900s. We used cannabis for everything.
Yes.
Migraines, everything.
Yes, and that's kind of been forgotten, through the war on drugs and the reefer madness and all the propaganda that our government has put out over the last 100 years. Cannabis medication was widely available in pharmacies. 100 years ago, you could go into a pharmacy, or longer than 100 years, 150 years ago. You could go into a pharmacy and purchase sleep medication, the main ingredient being cannabis indica.
Yes.
And it's just where we could be at if cannabis research had been allowed for the last 150 years. is very sad. But we are, I really feel we're on the kind of the turning cusp where people, the majority of people realize the potential of cannabis and that it definitely has medical potential.
And I will say for me, and I know we talked about this last time, my husband had not slept in about 7 years. He would wake up every night or every morning between 2 and 4, no matter what time he went to bed. First 2 days of taking Bloom, we now have to set an alarm. And then for me, it took my sleep up another notch. So the main reasons I carry it in our office is sleep, anxiety, inflammation, and pain. But it's for a ton of other things.
Oh my gosh, yes. So back to the question as far as what all it can help with. We touched on some of the minor issues, addiction. It's been shown to help with neurodegenerative disorders such as Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. A study that was just put out by the National Institute of Health showed that CBD actually helped remove the toxic protein that causes Alzheimer's over a period of time. So again, these compounds are readily accepted by our body to help create homeostasis or balance where it needs to.
Right, and CBD can create neuroplasticity, so we can regenerate brain cells.
It helps the prevention of our neurons breaking down.
Okay.
However, there are, very interestingly enough, there are some cannabinoids that do help promote neurogenesis, the regrowing of the neurons. We'll touch on that in another lesson, but those cannabinoids would be cannabichromine and cannabidiol.
Okay. So we had a question, can my animals take it? And so I know the answer is yes, because we give it to our dog.
Yes.
Around the 4th of July, which here in the city, 4th of July fireworks start in June, mid-June, and they go until about September, randomly, at 10 o'clock at night, Saturdays, Fridays, doesn't matter. So we give him, finally figured out the right dose, and he sleeps through fireworks, which has never been. He walks around drooling, pacing, so we can give it to our animals.
Yes, it is perfectly safe for animals. All mammals, not just humans, all mammals have the exact same endocannabinoid system of receptors and endocannabinoids within their system. So yes, it is totally safe. It helps tremendously. It's been shown to help tremendously with pet anxiety, inflammation, a number of different issues within pets, just like in humans.
Right, so we're excited about that. So this always comes up when I suggest CBD. There's just a small percentage of people that are like, I'm just a little, this makes me nervous. So is CBD marijuana, and can you get high from CBD?
So let's remember that hemp is in the same class as cannabis. It's the same plant, but it has different phenotypes or different physical traits that delineates the two. So the species being Cannabis sativa, you can delineate medical cannabis and then hemp.
Okay.
So they're within the same class of plants. However, what separates the two, CBD can be found in either plant, but the reason why, number one, it's legal from hemp due to the Hemp Appropriations Act, which was part of the 2014 Farm Bill that was passed by President Obama, allowed states to launch their own independent hemp pilot or hemp commercial program, which would legalize the cultivation, marketing, and research of hemp and any of its counterparts, cannabinoids being included. CBD products, so long as the THC content is 0.3% or less. So that is the difference. CBD can be found in either one, but it is only legal in pretty much all 50 states. There's a couple where it is debatable. It can be shipped into all 50 states, but some states it's debatable as far as the legality of retail sales within that state. So hemp naturally has very high amounts of CBD and trace amounts of all the other cannabinoids, whereas medical cannabis has high amounts of THC, the only psychoactive cannabinoid found in the plant, and it will have smaller amounts of all the other cannabinoids, which of course, within medical cannabis, you can breed specific cannabinoids to be higher to further tailor specific medicine to the each patient's needs.
Right, so medicinal effects, whatever you're looking for, they can create strains of more medicinal.
Exactly, and there's thousands of different strains of medical cannabis, just as there's hundreds of different known strains of hemp. That all just depends on the patient's needs and what you're going for within your cannabis-based product.
Right. So is there a, we already touched on this, you said there's been no deaths from cannabis.
Zero.
Right.
The only way that cannabis is going to kill you is if a bale of it falls on your head and you're crushed by it. There has been zero reported deaths throughout 10,000 years of cannabis and hemp use. No one has ever died from ingesting too much cannabis. It has no toxicity to it whatsoever.
Right, so I'm trying to find without my glasses. Here it is. So there's no fatal dose of cannabis. You would
Correct.
just fall asleep.
Correct. That is the worst side effect.
Right.
Of
Which is
course,
what we want.
with a CBD product. Now, specific strains of cannabis, let's say that somebody has depression or they have schizophrenia or some serious issues like that, THC has been shown in certain strains to actually make the cases of that more severe and worsen. So, of course, Missouri at this time is not a medical cannabis legal state, but no, there can be serious risks with someone who has those types of issues and not getting the correct strain.
Okay, so that brings me something I just thought of. Is I had a patient that I suggested cannabis to, and she said, I used to smoke pot when I was younger, and it would make my anxiety worse.
Exactly.
So that's what you're talking about.
Exactly.
But your bloom CBD oil doesn't have that effect because there's no THC in it.
Correct.
Or the full spectrum has a small amount that shouldn't do that.
Within a hemp CBD product, with it being 0.3% THC or less, there's no psychoactive effect whatsoever. So no, you shouldn't have any type of anxiety, worsening issues, or anything like that.
Okay, so let me read this piece of this article when we're talking about no fatal dose of cannabis. You could consider the ratio of the fatal dose to the effective dose of various medications. Heroin has a very narrow therapeutic index. If you were to take 5 times the dose of heroin that you can use to relieve pain, it would kill you. If you were to take 10 times the dose of alcohol that might get you a little bit relaxed, that dose could kill you. But there is no lethal dose of cannabis,
Exactly.
which is what you've already said.
There's no toxicity within any of the compounds whatsoever. Of course, smoking in itself has its own negative side effects. Of course, that's a different story. But yes, there's no toxicity whatsoever. Of course, there is its own respective side effects if you have certain conditions.
Right.
So.
Right, okay. So what should people look for in a product?
People really, the hemp CBD is such an exploding market right now, and it's very easy to go and shop for the cheapest price point when it comes to a product. You always want to make sure that the product that you're purchasing, the manufacturer is publicly displaying third-party testing analyses. Hemp is such a powerful plant and is capable of doing so much in our world, not only beyond medicine, but just being able to be manufactured into over 50,000 different products in today's society. Hemp is also the world's most potent bioaccumulator of toxins from the soil. So what that means is any soil that you put that hemp plant in, it's going to remediate any pesticides, heavy metals, toxins, herbicides, anything like that. So when we talk about extracting those compounds, heavy metals especially, there's no way to be able to get that out of your end CBD medicine product without denaturing the quality of your CBD. So you always want to make sure the manufacturer is publicly displaying with each new batch of CBD, as once you're done with this batch, you have to grow more hemp and then extract from that. So at each new batch, you want to make sure they're publicly displaying that there's no toxins, anything harmful within your product. Another really big thing that we try to talk about a lot is having a US sourced hemp product. There's a lot of popular CBD products out there that are sourced from Europe, and a lot of them are great products, don't get me wrong, but we try to support American farmers wherever we can, and if we can source within the United States, me personally, I see it as we might as well. So a lot of states such as Colorado or Kentucky are really leading the United States in hemp production. One other exciting update since the last time that we did our live stream is Missouri actually just passed its own commercial hemp program. So we're actually going to get a little bit more clarification on August 28th, next Tuesday. And this would allow for 2,000 acres in the state of Missouri for commercial cultivation. And so we're very excited to be able to source our CBD here within the state of Missouri rather than Colorado, and be able to support local farmers and pave the way for an exciting industry here in Missouri. So.
Well, that was my next question, is where Bloom sources from, and it's Colorado.
Yeah, we do source in Colorado at this time, and we are very much looking forward to be able to source here within the great state of Missouri.
Yay. Well, and so that brings up a good point too. So like sometimes supplements or different things come from China.
Yes.
And there's a lot of nuclear waste.
Yes.
And so you just have to be careful that it's sourced, safely.
Exactly. China has actually loosened their hemp legislation within the last couple decades, and going back to why it's so important to know where your hemp or your hemp CBD is coming from, China actually is the world leading exporter of hemp-based products at this time and hemp CBD in the country. They actually supply 90% of the world's hemp supply at this point. The United States is only meeting 10% of the demand for CBD within the country at this time.
Okay, and it just popped into my head. So when we talked about cannabis being the cure-all for remedy or illnesses up until the early 1900s, it reminds me that we talked about this before, but my son did a report on Henry Ford, and it was really when Henry Ford built the car from hemp, fueled it with hemp, took it to the exposition, tried to destroy it, and the only thing that destroyed was the hammer or the bat, or whatever.
He tried to hit it with.
And so then it suddenly became illegal.
Yes. Which is really interesting too, because hemp obviously doesn't have enough THC for it to be psychoactive at all. DuPont Motors actually directly lobbied against Henry Ford's effort to make a completely sustainable automobile. Hemp was actually made illegal before marijuana was. They actually outlawed that in 1917. It wasn't until 20 years later when Henry Anslinger was head of the DEA, and we had a big influx of Mexican immigrants at that time. They decided to associate marijuana with the Mexican immigrants that were coming into our country, and hence that's where the whole the reefer madness and all of those propaganda terms started coming about.
That is really interesting. But if you think about it, Henry Ford, he could have taken out the oil, automobile, textiles, because we use cotton for hemp, or hemp for clothing.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was a big.
And I was just reading a book on the international production of hemp throughout mankind, and a couple really interesting things. It wasn't only the automobile industry that rallied against hemp; it was all of the other industries such as coal, tobacco, the manufacturing, the textiles, or the silks industries, and now, of course, the biggest lobbying against is the pharmaceutical industry, of course. And it's really interesting how just in our society we've come to rally against this plant for no reason other than opposing corporate interests.
Right. Because you don't want competition.
Exactly. Which, another note here, really interesting that Mitch McConnell he's introduced a federal legalization of Hemp Act that's moving through the House and the Senate right now, which would remove hemp from the Controlled Substances Act and treat it as an agricultural commodity, just like corn and soy. So a lot of progress is being made. We've still got to keep it up. Make sure to, of course, vote in your elections anytime you see any type of cannabis legislation or anything like that. Because this is a viable medicine. Anecdotally, of course, I can't say medicine.
Of course.
But, it's capable of helping so many people with a number of different issues, and that's ultimately what it's all about.
Well, and we have, anecdotal testimonies from lots of people in our practice.
Yes.
So, I was just thinking of something about that, but now I forgot what that was.
It'll come back.
It will. Okay, so can we build a tolerance to CBD oil?
Yes and no, but not in the typical tolerance type of way with any normal substance. The way that CBD works, and I hear this pretty commonly, people will take a CBD product and they're expecting some type of head change, or they're trying to expect something within the first day or two of them taking it. Some people will notice something, they'll notice a calming effect. Other people, according to the research that's out there on CBD and how it interacts with our cannabinoid receptors, it can actually take up to 25 to 30 days for it to build up on our receptors enough for our body to start using it when it needs to. So people may find that after they've taken CBD for a number of times, they're able to actually decrease their dose that they needed to notice, whatever was helping them out with whatever issue they had.
Yeah, and I mentioned Mark noticed the difference within days.
Yes.
It took me about 3 weeks
Yes.
before I finally realized, and Christina here in the office is like, you've been much more easygoing, because I get flustered when I get behind. And so she was the one that first figured it out, and then I thought, I'm sleeping better. So it did take me a little bit longer.
Yeah.
So we just don't give up.
Every body is different. That's the biggest thing. So we always recommend to start with a low dose, and if you don't notice anything after about a month, increase it until you do start to notice something.
Okay. Can we talk about the CBD receptors in our body?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So we have 2 different cannabinoid receptors. We have what's called CB1, cannabinoid 1 receptor, and CB2 receptors. CB1 receptors are found primarily in the brain, down the spine, and in the spleen. whereas CD2 receptors are actually found primarily in the immune system. They're on T cells throughout the immune system, and they will actually spread out throughout the peripheries of our body, all down our legs and all of our arms. So they're actually found throughout the entirety of the human body.
Yeah, which I just think is so cool. I just think it's so neat that we have all that we were born with that system.
Exactly.
Ready to receive this plant that we've been living side by side with for thousands of years.
Yep, and we've evolved with it
Right.
as well. Another interesting fact here is historians actually believe that hemp was the first agricultural crop that turned hunter-gatherer humans into the more domesticated, domesticated human that you find nowadays. Up to 10 to 12,000 years ago, hemp was the first row crop that humans figured out how to actually cultivate.
It's pretty cool. I had a patient, 2 patients this week actually that I suggested I suggest CBD oil because I just think there's medicinal benefits. I do have one patient and he's a surgeon and he's like, I don't really notice too much, but I'm going to keep taking it because I know all the benefits that it does.
Yep.
But anyway, both of these patients have severe allergies like to grasses, etc. So they were wondering, would I be allergic to hemp?
That's a really good question. To my knowledge, according to all the research I've come across, I personally have not come across any allergies pertaining to people and CBD. So yeah, that's really one, not in my personal things that I've come across, but I mean, people are allergic to anything and everything from the grass to the sun.
Yes.
So, interesting. Yeah, I would be very interested to see if somebody was actually allergic.
Yeah, one patient did go ahead and buy a bottle just to try it, but the other patient is waiting. So, so what happens if a recovering addict uses CBD oil? Let's say someone is like a pot smoker and was addicted to marijuana at one time, and they were to use, let's just say your full spectrum. Could they taste the THC? Would it send them into a relapse? Do you know any research on that?
Well, one thing I will say is that CBD actually negates the psychoactive effect of THC. I personally haven't come across anyone that has been addicted to marijuana, so I can't exactly say definitively. I do know, according to the research that's been out there, is CBD does help with substance abuse in general. Due to the way that our cannabinoid receptors act with the other receptors in our brain that respond to substance addiction. And CBD has been shown to help with numerous different substances. So I haven't actually come across any personal testimonies of someone being addicted to, let's say, THC and use CBD to come off of that. But, so yeah.
Okay. Well, and it is interesting because this article that I have, and it was Tuesday Trivia today. Did you play Tuesday Trivia?
I did not.
Oh my gosh, I can't
like,
believe it.
I've been all over the place.
So this article was talking about how cannabis can enhance or synergistically work with pain medicines or opioids.
Yes.
To help dose escalation, to help actually get pain relief. So we have a patient, for instance, who was seeing a pain management doctor here in town, been on fentanyl patches, oxycodone, and Xanax for 15 years. She accidentally told her pain management that she's adjuncting with
CBD.
CBD. So they said, we will not prescribe anymore, so they just cut her off cold turkey. So clearly the pain management docs aren't up to date with all of this. Not all of them, but some of them.
Well, it's really interesting because I forget the exact percentage. I want to say 38% fewer opioids are prescribed in states that have some type of legal cannabis legislation.
Yes, and that's
so
in that article.
that is at direct odds with doctors who prescribe opioids.
Right, and do you know where that article was found?
Where?
The Journal of American Medical Association, which is what all doctors hang their hats on.
Exactly.
That journal. That's where that journal's from, because it's in this article.
Thankfully, I have seen more and more doctors that have come around to the idea of CBD supplementation. The biggest thing, I know this is another question on the list here, is does CBD have any type of interactions with medications? The answer is yes. On certain medications, doses of CBD at 40 milligrams and over in a single setting have been shown to have some adverse reactions. ProjectCBD.org is a great resource. We will continually point to people to Project CBD. And I will disclose, it's always important to talk to your doctor about what medications can have potential interactions with CBD in that type of setting. It interacts with a certain enzyme in our body that breaks down these pharmaceutical medications called the cytochrome P450 enzyme.
Yes.
Kind of a long mouthful
It
there,
is.
but so yes, for anyone who is on certain pharmaceutical medications, always talk to your doctor before
Right.
taking a supplement.
Because it would basically render that medicine non-active.
Yes, basically it tries to do the job of what the medicine is
Yes,
doing.
right. And so, also I was just thinking, this lady that got her pain medicine stopped after 15 years, didn't get weaned, just like we're not prescribing it anymore. The doctor even said to her, after 15 years, it's not even doing anything for you anyway.
That's great. I mean, in that type of situation, you know, especially for a clinical doctor to do that, you're asking for them to go directly to a street opioid or heroin or something like
Right.
that, which is terrible. So
Right,
it's really sad to hear that.
yeah, it is. Okay, and then, can people with seizures take CBD oil?
Yes, CBD has been shown to tremendously reduce the number of seizures in epileptic patients. And actually, this is how CBD first became legal. There was a family out of West Virginia who, their daughter, Charlotte, she suffered from Dravet syndrome, and she was having between 400 to 500 seizures a month. They had her on a cornucopia of different pharmaceutical medications, and she almost lost her life a number of times because the medications were actually making her condition worse. So the family had heard about the medical potential of cannabis and how it can reduce seizures. So they actually uprooted their whole livelihood. They moved out to Colorado, and they came across a family of growers that was growing a particular strain of medical cannabis that they nicknamed Heavy's Failure, because the THC content in it was so low that you could smoke the whole field of it and you wouldn't get high. So the family saw it upon themselves to extract the oil. They wanted to try it because they knew that it was not going to get their little 4-year-old Charlotte high. And her number of seizures dropped from 400 to 500 a month to less than 10 in a month. So just absolutely profound. Those types of social media videos circulated around the internet, and ultimately that is what inspired our government to legalize hemp CBD for various uses.
Right, I love that story, because as a parent, you just can't imagine that, and then to be able to take it down to less than 10, or 10 or less is
Oh my gosh,
just
I mean, that's
amazing.
purely life-changing.
Right. And so I tell this story in the office, which you or Dennis, another Bloom representative, told me, is you could, so say you smoke a joint and you get high, and then someone calls you, and this is a terrible example, by the way, and says you have to go get your kid from school, but you're high now. So you're like, oh my gosh, what do I do? So then you take CBD drops, like Bloom CBD drops, and the CBD flicks the THC off the receptors, and you aren't high anymore.
Correct, yeah.
And then,
There's some variables
Okay.
within that, of course,
but in general.
yes.
And then someone calls you and says, oh, you don't have to worry about coming and getting your kid because I can get off and bring them home. And you're like, darn, I just lost my buzz. So you smoke a joint again, but the THC can't knock the CBD off, so you can't get high.
Basically,
He's
yes.
like, where are the holes in that story?
The reason why THC has a psychoactive effect on the body is THC will bind to those different cannabinoid receptors and it will activate them, which causes the psychoactive effect. Well, CBD and THC compete for that spot on the receptor, so CBD will actually negate the binding affinity that THC will have on those receptors. So it takes up the space that THC does, and in turn will negate the psychoactive effects of it.
Right. Okay, and you are much more knowledgeable, but in my simple mind, when I try to explain it to patients, that's what I say is, when you have the correct CBD to THC ratio, you don't have the psychoactive effects.
Correct.
Because CBD will always win,
Correct.
basically.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so I mean, I just can't tell you how many times people are afraid they're gonna get high. They're afraid because of all of the propaganda, like this is your brain on drugs, but now we know it's neurogenesis to brain cells, neuroprotective to brain cells. But all of this misinformation, and people just have hung on to this thinking it's illegal, thinking they're doing something dirty, like, you know, and so do you have any words of wisdom just to help people?
You know, we live in the age of information, and we have the internet, we have the availability to access information, more information than the President of the United States had at his fingertips 20 years ago. And do your research. I will always say do your own research. Go to projectcbd.org, go to YouTube and type in CBD and how it helps patients with Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. I've seen videos of an elderly gentleman who's 79 and suffers from the tremors associated with Parkinson's, have his tremors reduced within seconds after taking just some drops of CBD oil. There's so much information that's out there. I can understand when people have been inundated with decades of propaganda and this is going to rot your brain and the egg in the frying pan.
Yes.
And I can totally understand that, but you know, you can look to the World Health Organization, you can look to the FDA, which now has a patent on cannabinoids being neuroprotective. They are antioxidative, they help, they have anti-cancer properties. I mean, all of this can be found online. You know, CBD is, it's not psychoactive in any way, so for those who are afraid of a high, as long as that THC content is at that legal limit of being below 0.3%, you're not going to get any type of psychoactive or high from
Right.
it. So.
And it's legal in all 50 states, like we said at the beginning.
Correct.
So that's another question I get. Okay, well, I think that was all on my list. Do you have anything else you think we should mention?
We can touch on the thermography program
Let's
a little
do
bit
it.
because
Okay.
that's a huge value.
Yes.
That Bloom is the only CBD manufacturer within the United States that offers this type of program where you can actually see what the potential anti-inflammatory progression while you're taking the product. Going back to people not really knowing if it's doing anything or becoming impatient with it, we're the only company that utilizes thermography to be able to see using heat signatures that a thermal imaging camera is able to do to see what CBD is doing over a period of time. So for anyone who purchases within the Springfield, Missouri area or surrounding area and Louisville, Kentucky, as long as you're purchasing one Bloom CBD product a month, whether it's the tincture, whether it's our vape cartridge, when we have the topical products, coffee, and as we continue to add to our product line, purchase one product a month, you get 4 free thermograms at Bras Thermography within a participating region. We offer a baseline screening, so before you even take the product, we offer a comparative screening at 30 days, an additional comparative screening at 90 days, and then one at the end of 12 months. And thermography uses, again, a thermal imaging camera to pick up heat signatures or inflammation levels, one of the biggest proponents of CBD being its anti-inflammatory
Yes.
properties. And even if you're not noticing anything, you can actually see what it potentially is doing.
And we at this office recommend thermography over mammogram also. So,
Yep.
and it used to just be you were doing chest thermography, but now you've extended it to.
That's another exciting update on our program. We did start off doing just free breast thermograms as part of our free program. We have actually expanded that since to regions of interest. So anyone can do 4 free scans on a particular region of interest within the body, breast included. So if someone had arthritic pain or inflammatory back pain, inflammatory pain in any part of the body, they can actually see over a period of time what the CBD product is potentially doing.
Yes. And one other question I remember is sometimes people will come in and they'll say, I've tried CBD oil and it didn't work. So my experience is it's usually been a very low dose, like 3 milligrams, 10 milligrams. And then I just think it's just like anything else. You could try, we have an array of anti-inflammatories on the market, but so-and-so likes this one only, and the other, so my thing, and I'm gonna see, because you're the expert, we would say try a different brand, try a different dose.
Absolutely. I've heard that pretty consistently as someone has tried a CBD product, they don't want to spend the high amount of money on another one. What I've noticed is the dosing has a lot to do with it, but also the quality. We want to go back to that third-party testing analyses, making sure that that CBD is a high-quality product, of course, and that you're taking enough of the dose to actually help your system with whatever it needs.
Right, because certain doses is what you need for certain issues that you're trying to deal with.
Yes.
So.
We can never prescribe a certain dose, of course, since CBD is not medication. However, within our educational booklet that Teresa has here, we have a general dosing guideline, which is a great starting point for your level of pain and how much you weigh. It's a great starting point, and then up, of course, if needed.
Yep. Okay. Well, I appreciate that, you coming in and talking with us again.
Absolutely. Thank you
CBD
so
is a
much.
hot topic. We push it here at the office because I really believe in it.
Yes.
So I'm glad that you could come and answer the frequently asked questions that we have.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
So you guys go to Bloom's Facebook page too and like them.
Yes.
If you're watching on Facebook, like my page. And thanks again, Kyla.
Thank you so much,
Okay.
Teresa. We'll
See you next time.